Hello, today I wanted to show you guys how the last page of that portfolio website, flexbox only website, was built. The contact page uses flexbox only, no grid, but it can also be built using grid. But because I find flexbox is less complex than grid, so and just for practice purposes for myself I used flexbox only. This technique, it's called float labels. There's labels that move up when the user clicks on input field, and I will post a link to this technique below the video. Or you can also, guys, Google it by just type in float labels, because this technique, it has different variations. And let's take a look how it looks. So it's a simple contact page with a name, email, and message. And as you can see, if you click here, just the label just shifts up. Okay, you can also use tab keys, and it will be the same. So when you start typing here, John, say email, I use tab key. So John something, John Doe, say .com, and then hello. Okay, that's pretty much it. And on resize, it hits the breakpoint, so it just it becomes like this. So just all the fields just stack vertically. Okay, and this is our navigation, and you scroll down, so the submit button and our footer. Okay, so let's take a look how it's built. So this is our markup again. So it's same markup as before. I mean, for the body and the div rep with the class rep, then our header, navigation. Then within the main, we put our form within main container, and just a regular form markup. But there's a few things to note here. We have to wrap input and label within one div, and I'll explain why. So as you can see, we wrap it in one div, and then this is placed in the div of field wrap, and then there is a second div also, and we have to use a required attribute here on the input fields, and I will explain why when we move to CSS. This is our message, text area, message, ID message, and then there's a label, and then there's submit button. Okay, so it's pretty simple form. And now let's take a look at the CSS. Okay, so this is how our unstyled without any CSS form looks. So those are the fields, name, email, message, and submit button. And now I already have the rules here, so I'm just gonna copy and paste and explain the rules. Okay, first of all, important to understand here again, as I mentioned, what we do here, we wrap input and label in one div. Also, what's important to note is that we use this div to we will give it the position relative, so it will create the position context for the absolutely positioned labels, and this is part of that technique. You can read about it online in that link. But we also change the normal order of the input and label, because in the normal order, label should be placed before input, so it should be a label and then input in the normal HTML order for the form markup. But we changed normal HTML source order because we can target labels with we will be targeting labels with the adjacent sibling selectors, and I'll explain later. This is the selector with the plus sign. Okay, and also it will be used with the focus pseudo class, which is used to style HTML element that is selected by keyboard or keyboard key or activated by the mouse. Okay, we also set required attributes for input fields. This one, we also need those to work with the valid pseudo class selector, and I'll explain those. It will become more clear when you look at this here at the CSS. Okay, so let's take a look here. This is our first rule. Okay, I'm just gonna close this. And what's happening here, let's take a look. So we're using class contact. We place class contact here in the form, and then we'll be using that to style the whole form. So just via this class content, so descending from this class. Okay, using like a combined selectors for this. So first rule is what we do here is we make the form stretch 100%. Then we give it max width 1000 pixels. If you remember from previous videos, and if you look at the main.css, our wrapper, this div that wraps the whole content, is also 1000 pixel max width. So we're just making sure that it doesn't overflow or it doesn't grow wider than that wrapper div. Okay, so next rule is as you can see here, we have this div that wraps two other divs, and we give it display flex with justify content space between. Okay, let's see what happened here. So right now it's not very visible, but this is display flex with justify content space between. Okay, and yeah, on the main, we already in the previous rules we have display flex on the main, on the container. So nested divs become like a flex items, so we can horizontally space them with justify content. Okay, so next rule is this one. We have to target our actual divs. So field wrap and then div. This one was their child selector. This one and this one. Okay, and we give flex shorthand, which is flex grow 0 don't grow, flex shrink 0 don't shrink, and then 28 rem for the flex basis, which is the width. Let's take a look. Okay, and the width, and then we're also giving it a position relative. so we can absolutely position whatever is inside those divs. Okay, next rule is just give it some styling to the input, making input width 100%, input fields this one, and the height 2.5 rem. So this is how it looks now. This is our inputs. Okay, so next rule, we are targeting our labels, and we're giving them position absolute, and you will see later why we're doing this. So we're targeting field rep, label, label. Okay, position absolute, and this places them within that div, which is position relative, which creates the position and context for those labels. Okay, now let's see. So you see now they're placed inside those, here, this one and this one. Okay, and now we need to do the same with the message, with the text area. Text area, we gave it the class of message. Also same, we give position relative, and then we place labels absolutely within the relative parent. Again, position absolute, so left and top, now it's relative to this. You see? Now next one is we're styling text area. Our text area, and making it width just stretch 100%, resize none. That's the text area. So now it looks more like a form, but still nothing happens to the labels yet. So now we have this rule, which actually makes the labels move up on the y-axis, and this is just a chain selectors. Let's take a look here. Not sure if I can just make them like that, so you can just guys see better. Okay, so they're chain selectors. It's a combined selectors, and I'll explain what's happening here. You can also read about this technique again in the link that I will post below the video. But what's happening here, we have two different type of selectors. So first one is just a field rep and then child div. So it's combined with input focus, and on focus by keyboard keys, or entering just a shift in the keyboard key, like shift, using shift key to focus on that field, and then on mouse or on valid input, as there is required attribute present in input field. We move labels up on vertical y-axis using negative EM value. So going back to our explanation before. Okay, so this is called adjacent sibling selector, and it's targeting labels on different states, on focus and on valid. Valid For valid we need the required attribute, because that's why valid pseudo selector, sorry, pseudo class valid, it works because there is a required attribute here. And same here, you see there is a required attribute here. And then because it's called adjacent sibling selector, it selects the adjacent sibling, meaning if you look here at this div, these two are siblings, and this one, the adjacent sibling, it has to follow the previous sibling. So if we put label on top of input, this selector will not work. It wouldn't work. That's why we placed labels below input, here and here, as you can see, and same here. Okay, that's why it works. And then we're using transform with translate y. Y, it's a y-axis, which is a vertical one, goes from top to bottom. We're using negative value 2.5 em, and it moves it up. Okay. Again, that's, you can read about this technique in the link below the video, but that's pretty much how this works. Okay, and now when we click here, you see it moves, the label moves out of the input field. Okay, so that's, and now we just style our button separately. I have a couple of rules for the button. So I just made it display flex, remove borders, some padding, margin, cursor point, some background, so just some styling for the button. And then there is some couple of media queries. So on max width of 940 pixels, it just changes from the flex direction, becomes flex direction column, and then we're changing shorthand of flex, making it auto. Okay, again, this is flex grow, flex shrink 0 0, don't grow, don't shrink, and then auto. And that's why on resize, it just, the fields stack on top of each other. You see now this label is up because we already have a cursor here. We click here, here, and that's pretty much all about this page. Again, you can read about the technique in the link below the video. Okay, guys, and that's all that I wanted to share with you today. And as always, thank you for watching.